Hi, you are in the ladies' room with Dr. Donica, the only public ladies' room you can enter anytime without ever waiting online. I'm your host, Dr. Donica Moore. We'll be having real conversations with real women about really intimate issues. They may be embarrassing, sad, or funny, but they will always be interesting and informative. You know, like the best conversations you've had in ladies' rooms with your best friends, or total strangers and a physician. Please join us. Hello, and welcome to another fun episode of In the Ladies' Room. Now, my guest today is actually, she may not even know this, but she's one of the first women I ever spoke to when I had the idea of doing a podcast. At that time, I wasn't really fully committed, but Kathleen Butler Smith not only loved the idea, she was enthusiastic, supportive, encouraged me. She said that I would love doing it, and she invited me to be a guest on her radio show and podcast, MorphMom Moments. Anyway, I enjoyed that experience so much, I was hooked, and In the Ladies' Room was born. And that's what Kathleen Smith does. She's created a whole organization called MorphMom, which is a multimedia platform dedicated to helping women take their next step in their careers and in their personal lives and in their overall development. Now, in addition to having developed an online community and a radio show, MorphMom and Kathleen host conferences and classes around the country to help women connect with like-minded other women. And in her spare time, she writes a Huffington Post column which shares these stories. Now, when Kathleen first started MorphMom, she was a self-described 43-year-old stay-at-home mom. In full disclosure, she had also been an attorney, an author, an actress, and a singer. She put her professional aspirations on hold for a time being while she focused on raising her 3 children, one of whom just graduated from her alma mater, Georgetown University. So yay about that, and we'll hear all about the graduation. But I'm also going to ask her to explain what motivated her to start MorphMom. But as with many other great ideas that moms have, she did tell me it began with conversations on the carpool line, which, if you think about it, or if you've ever been on the carpool line, those conversations are often very similar to the conversations we have in the ladies' room, although admittedly not as racy and not as personal. Now, of course, we're going to hear all about MorphMom from Kathleen and all of their other activities. But of course, in the ladies' room, we like to tie it to a medical issue. And when I asked Kathleen if she had a medical issue she wanted to discuss, her immediate response was sleep. And actually, she did it at a much higher volume and with much more angst in it. And she has a fairly typical and fairly disruptive story of perimenopause hitting and sleep leaving. Now, we already spoke with the sleep doctor, Dr. Michael Bruce, who's one of only 2 men to have ever been allowed to enter our ladies' room, by the way, about the medical aspects of sleep disturbances and what to do about them in episode number 36. But today we're going to have a real live, hair down conversation about sleep disruption with our real life perimenopausal woman on the go. And as we so often see, this is not an isolated issue, but affects and is affected by just about everything else that's going on. So without further ado, please help me welcome Kathleen Butler Smith, founder of MorphMom. You're in the ladies' room. Welcome.
Thank you. It is such an honor to be in the ladies' room with you. And as Donica mentioned, we were going on the radio show and we had a couple drinks and we were talking about
I only had one.
Okay, I had most of the drinks, to be honest. But I thought this idea was amazing. Now, I also knew your history and what an amazing speaker you are, how you can connect with anybody you encounter, how you're incredibly knowledgeable about any medical subject. So the whole combination seemed to be just the absolute perfect storm to start this. And I'm just so thrilled that you did it and grateful. And it's so necessary for all of us out there. So a huge thank you to you for doing this.
Well, thank you, Kathleen. And now everybody who's listening knows exactly why I love you. One of many reasons. Not just because of the flattery, but also because of the wine. I have to say, what I didn't say in my intro is that I was also very flattered to be a speaker at one of your MorphMom non-conference conferences. And it was I've been doing speaking engagements for probably, let's just say more than 25 years. And this is the first time any conference organizer ever offered me a glass of wine on the stage. So it was myself and Dr. Francesca Fusco, who I understand is your personal dermatologist. She also did the radio show with me. Love her. We have to get her on this show.
Yeah.
And we discussed menopause, metabolism, and there was mindfulness.
Botox.
I always forget about the mindfulness. I need to put a big sign on my wall that just says mindfulness. But it was so great doing this, like in a discussion with a glass of wine. So for everybody who's listening, I will tell you that right before we began, Kathleen also said, where's the wine? You need to add a glass of wine to the podcast. And we will do that when we do podcast interviews after 5 p.m. How about that?
Probably much wiser. Yes.
So tell us about MorphMom.
So basically, as you said, about 6 years ago now, I had been a prosecutor a long, long time ago. I'm from Jersey City, gone to law school, found my way back to Jersey City and was a prosecutor in Hudson County. Loved it. I taught in jails, loved it. I thought that was what I would do forever, but life happens. And I worked with my first child. I had my second. It just got a little too dangerous and a little bit too hard. So I thought I'm gonna take a little bit of break. Then I had my third child and it was still gonna be just a small break. And 1 year turned into 2, turned into 14. And all of a sudden one day it had been 14 years and I just couldn't go back. I'm sure many of you out there in the legal profession or any profession that requires these continuing educational courses each year, I couldn't keep up with them. First of all, they're expensive. And it was a lot to do with 3 kids and take these classes at the same time. It just wasn't going to happen. And it was a hard reality to accept because I loved what I had done. And I really didn't think I could do anything else. I'm not sure how great I was at it, but I loved that. And now looking and staring into the future and thinking, where do I begin? I had no confidence. Although I'd raised these 3 kids and had been doing stuff all the time, how does that translate into anything anybody would ever want to hire me?
Or into a resume.
Yeah, into anything. What do you do with that? And on top of that, I just didn't even know who I sort of was anymore. Like what did I love? I knew what my kids loved. I knew what everybody else liked to do and needed to do. But as far as myself, I had no idea. And it was scary. And, not everyone was as supportive as the idea of moving forward into something new, which made it more difficult because you want everyone to cheer you on in this new adventure. And, if they're not there, which is fine, they may not.
By not everyone, do we mean somebody who you live with, who you were married to,
no,
who
I'd say
would be
friends.
good to you?
Really more realistically, more my some of my friends who were sort of like, why do you need to do something else? And I understood that, but I did. So I just had a hard time sort of figuring out where to begin, how to begin, and to get the confidence to do it when maybe there were others thinking I shouldn't be doing it. So I thought,
interesting that they had that reaction. I'm wondering were those friends women who were also self-described stay-at-home moms and they were worried that you were upsetting the status quo?
I think so. And I think sometimes when you see somebody moving to do something different, you question what it is you're doing. And maybe they thought, wait a minute, I'm very happy with what I'm doing. Yeah. And so I think it was maybe a combination. I've learned that over the years with interviewing other women who went through a similar experience. So I sort of decided, I really can't do much, but I can talk and I can interview. And that's what I've done as a prosecutor. So I thought, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. I'm going to take a video camera and I'm going to travel around the country and I'm going to interview women who sort of went through what I'm going through and made it to the next step, how they did it, what steps they took. And I felt very, I wanted it to be a video interview because I wanted to see the person because it's a lonely journey. So if I could see someone out there who sort of looked like me and was, maybe scrambling around at 2:00 in the morning, trying to do laundry, trying to do this, and was able to still do it, it wasn't as lonely a journey. And then on top of that, I asked them to be very specific with steps that they took, but also steps that didn't work. Because many times we think it's helpful to say, yes, do this, this, and this. And sometimes it's just as helpful to tell someone what didn't work.
Well, that's one of my favorite quotes is that a fool learns from their experience. Yeah. A fool learns from their mistakes. A wise person learns from other people's mistakes.
And I
love that.
And women were so generous with it. And I'd never done a web. For those of you out there, I could barely do email. And this is when email was born. I said, I'm going to do a website. How do I turn one on?
I'm still not convinced that you actually can do email because I've sent you lots of emails that have gone unanswered.
Yeah, I'm not that great at it still. And I'm still not that great at the website. But here it is. It's existing. So basically, when it started, I did these interviews and I traveled all over the country. And I've done probably over 800 videos all over the country.
Wow.
And it was women going back, having been at home and going back. But all of a sudden, they told one person and they told one person, and women in different states and different cities and towns and country, everywhere were saying, I'm not a mom, but I have a story that could help. So I said, okay, great. tell the story. Or I am a mom and I never left work, but I have a great story. Or it's not about work, but I have a story that I've overcome something and I think it could connect. I could connect with someone out there and help them. So MorphMom sort of morphed through the years into sort of really relaying women's stories about how they did it, how they overcame what they had to overcome, and how they accomplished what they wanted to accomplish. And it's about connecting with someone out there who's in a similar situation. So you can go to MorphMom for inspiration about where to begin. You can go to find someone who's actually doing something you want to do to connect with, or someone who's been through an experience, a tragedy or something that they've gone through that you just need somebody out there to connect with. So that's what MorphMom sort of grew into. And originally it was virtual, and it still is. So where we had the website.
Although you have real live conferences.
Right.
And you call non-conferences, which I love. I guess that's because you serve alcohol on the stage. And I know you recently had a conference that I'm devastated that I missed because it was only 30 minutes from my house, and it didn't require a bridge or a tunnel to get there or an airplane. So I loved that. I loved going to your conference. You know, I always enjoy being a speaker, but I loved being a listener at that conference. You had terrific speakers. One of your guest speakers I have to have as a guest on this show, and that's the woman who got hit by the truck and wrote a book about it.
Amazing.
What's her name?
Katie McKenna.
Katie McKenna. Okay, Katie, if you're listening, call me. And of course, we were introduced by one of your members, Harriet Donnelly of E5 Marketing, who helps run all and organize all your conferences. She's amazing.
Completely makes it happen.
And one of your other members and one of your other speakers from the last conference that I missed is already planning to be one of our guests, and that's Jean Petrucci of Living Plate.
Amazing.
So, you know, this whole interconnectedness thing is really a thing. And speaking of your other members who I met at that conference, I have to give a shout out to Katha Gentis.
Yeah.
I am a huge fan of her show. What is it called? The Other F Word?
The Other F Word on Amazon. Yeah.
I'm sorry?
On Amazon. The Other F Word.
Amazon. So everybody needs to, you know, watch that show. And of course, the punchline is the F word is 50. Don't tell anybody. Which is much more scary than it sounds. Have you gotten there yet? Have you turned the corner, or are you still sort of 49?
I'm sort of at the last mile. By the end of the year.
Okay. All right. So with all this stuff going on, it's pretty clear why you would have problems sleeping. So tell me why sleep was the immediate thing that came to your mind when I said, do you have a medical problem you want to talk about?
It's been years and years. And it's funny because I don't remember there ever being a problem in college or in my 20s or, you know, and of course everyone has problems when you have kids, you're up, but you should then be so tired you can always sleep when you finally can. But at the time when I was raising my kids, my husband was working all the time. So he could be coming home anywhere from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock in the morning. And
what does he do?
He's an attorney. We met in law school.
Okay.
He's an attorney in the city and does M&A litigation. So his hours are crazy. And I think it might have sort of started then because I was always sort of listening to when he would come in. Just, you can't fully sleep till everybody's in the nest.
That's what happens when you have teenagers who are driving.
Yeah. Right. And I think it sort of kept going. It was waiting for him to come home at any time. So I wasn't really sleeping. So I could always fall asleep. I could barely stand up at 8 o'clock at night, but come midnight, wide awake. And this is until 2 or 3 in the morning. So that continues now. Teenagers, same thing, but it's never stopped. So I can fall asleep anywhere at 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock, but at midnight, I know when I open my eyes, it's going to be 12:30. And I know I'm
now,
going to
when you fall asleep, are you in bed or are you on the couch?
Both. It's either. It depends.
Because a lot of people have that problem where they fall asleep on the couch because they're watching TV and they're so exhausted. Right. They just close their eyes for a second and they're out. Then they wake up at 12 o'clock.
Right.
And then they brush their teeth and go to the bathroom and whatever. And then they're awake. And then they say, okay, I'm just going to check Twitter to see if we still have a democracy or, to see what happened or, and you read about the latest school shooting, which is, that's my problem.
Yeah.
Every time there's a shooting, I can't sleep. The last one with the Santa Fe shooting, I was literally sobbing in the car when I was driving, not just because it happened, but I heard this little girl, this 9th grader interviewed, and they asked her, did you always think this would never happen at my school? And she's in the midst of her crying. She said, no. And the guy was surprised by this answer. And he said, what? No, you didn't think you thought it would. She said, yeah, this is happening everywhere. I just knew it was only a matter of time before it would come to my school. And I just couldn't stop crying. And I feel lucky because my kids have gotten out of college and have never been shot. Knock wood, knock everything.
Right.
But that's like one of these milestones now that at your daughter's graduation, you have to celebrate the fact that she wasn't in a school shooting. So anyway, that's why I can't sleep.
Right.
So you get up, you're wide awake at midnight. Then what happens?
So I DVR a bunch of shows, and I don't watch them during the day. I save them because I know from 12 to 3, I'm going to be wide awake, and I watch. It's terrible. I know it's the worst solution.
Right, because that keeps you, that reinforces now this pattern and this wakefulness pattern, but also it keeps you up. Right. So what I would rather see you do, rather than watch television, which is kind of mindless, of course, but we want to see what happens. Maybe you'll sleep better now that Scandal is ending and Grey's Anatomy is ending. And I know I've been there. When I binge watched TV shows, you want to get to the next thing. So I would encourage you, instead of watching the TV shows, to read a book. And what happens when you read a book is it does require more mindfulness and more attentiveness. But when that attentiveness starts to wane, your eyes get heavy and you're much more likely to fall asleep. And it also doesn't have that, the screen time and the blue light element. And especially if you're watching shows on your iPad versus the television or on your phone, it's much closer.
I have tried that, but I was telling you a little bit before, I don't know if other people experience this too. The anxiety for me it's not falling asleep, like I said. It's when I wake up, when, if ever, will I fall back asleep? And that is really difficult. So sometimes I'll be, and I need the TV on when I'm sleeping. It's always on. So if my husband comes in and turns it off, I wake up and then I'm up. And it's just, I need the sound. And I probably don't need it. Probably every you're saying you do not need the sound.
Well, but some people feel that they do need it. And I will tell you, I never argue with somebody who tells me something works for them, especially if it doesn't have any harmful side effects. It may have a harmful side effect for your marriage if you want it on and he wants it off, but then you need another doctor to talk to you about that. Although we talk about marital issues in the ladies' room as well. I don't know if you had a chance to listen to the sleep doctor, Michael Bruce, on his episode of the podcast. He confessed to all of our listeners that his wife, the wife of the sleep doctor, needs to have the television on in order to fall asleep. And what he recommended, which was really interesting, which I would never have thought of, is that there are televisions that you can preset to go off after a certain number of minutes. And so if you could get used to falling asleep with it on and then having it go off and staying asleep, or trying earbuds and listening to meditation podcasts or meditation tapes online. Have you tried that? You're giving me that doesn't work.
And I get more anxious because now this should be working. Why is this not working?
I'm checking my watch and it's still not working.
It's been 3
one of those people who checks the phone.
Yes. So now I'm in a complete tizzy because I'm not able to listen and meditate. And now I'm I'm the worst. I've tried. I don't like to take, I've tried even the Tylenol PM. And
don't do that.
I'm so groggy the next day.
Okay. So that's my red line. So you know how I said I don't argue with people who say it works, even people who say that works. Tylenol PM is great for a one night, once in a while solution if you're not driving in the morning. Right. And most of us are driving in the morning. The reason Tylenol PM puts you to sleep, and we did talk about with Dr. Bruce as well, is the active ingredient is diphenhydramine, which is Benadryl. And it has a very long half-life and it will give you a hangover effect in the morning. And it doesn't really put you to sleep per se. It just gives you kind of that foggy brain that makes all of the anxieties and stresses of the day kind of dissipate so you can fall asleep. It basically kind of works very similarly to a glass of wine. A glass of wine probably works a little better because it's also a muscle relaxant. However, if you're a woman of a certain age, a glass of wine in the, before bedtime will make you wake up in the middle of the night to have to pee. So, and then you're starting all over again.
Back to zero again.
So is that one of the things that wakes you up, or just, this?
No, yes, I will have to go in the middle of the night, but I'm already up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like there's it's almost like this time clock, this alarm clock goes on internally. And I know when I look up, it's going to say, 12:33 or 12:15. I know it's going to be right around then. And then I know, like, I'll look at another, it'll be 3-ish. And that's when I can sort of, then I'll wake up again, maybe at 6.
How do you do when you travel to another time zone?
I'm okay.
Because it sounds like what needs to happen here is that you need to reset your biological time clock.
But I have to nap. That's what's killing me now, though.
And there's nothing wrong with napping. Napping, if it's a scheduled nap, not if it's I'm so exhausted I'm falling asleep at my desk kind of nap. But if it's like a 4:00 p.m. every day, I'm going to take a 20 to 30 minute nap. That's actually really healthy and really awesome. It's not great to take a nap at 9 p.m.
Right.
So that's basically what you're doing, is you're basically napping at 9 p.m. Now, have you ever worked with a sleep specialist to try to reset your time clock?
Years and years ago, I tried, and he said, because of that weird thing with my husband coming home so late, and he said, it's almost like how a baby gets on a sleep schedule. Mm-hmm. And he said, sort of, I got myself into this bizarre sleeping schedule like an infant would, almost like a feeding schedule. But I sort of said, okay. And he said, we could do more. And I said, well, I can't. I have 3 kids and I just couldn't work more with him. So I sort of accepted the solution and dealt with it. And so it's been like this for, 10 years. It's been I can't remember the last night. I can't remember a time I've actually slept through the night. I literally can't. I maybe starting going to bed at 2 or 3 in the morning, I can make it to 7, but I don't know the last time that I did that. And people think they can't believe I'm up, but I'm so used to it. I'm actually fine until like 2 or 3, and I get really tired, but I can usually work my way through it.
So when do you take a nap?
Usually around, like, I don't take an official nap and lie down, but if I'm somewhere like waiting in a car for somebody, waiting for somebody somewhere, I'll close my eyes for like 10 minutes or 15 minutes. It's not an official nap, but if I'm home, I'll sort of just sit down for 15 minutes and I usually fall asleep and then I wake back up again. So it's just a quick, and it helps. It actually works.
So an official nap would probably help a little more.
Definitely.
What I worry about with the unofficial nap, or the just I'm falling asleep wherever I happen to be, is, have you ever fallen asleep while in a moving vehicle?
No.
Okay.
No.
So I worry about that.
It's usually when I kind of know I have 20 minutes that I do. It's weird. It's like my body's like, all right, you have 20 minutes. Like, figure it out right now. No, it's never that bad.
Because sleepiness is one of the leading causes of motor vehicle accidents.
Mm-hmm.
And we're always harping about drunk driving and driving under the influence, which are horrible and terrible and absolutely unacceptable, including, one of the, we've been talking a lot about the opioid crisis in the media. I actually met a woman at physical therapy who just happened to tell me that she takes her pain medication, which are narcotics, before she gets to physical therapy. And I was like, well, how do you get to physical therapy? Right. She goes, I drive. And she was taking 2 Furosset. And I'm like, and she was an older woman. I said, you take 2 Furosset and then get behind the wheel in the same state where I'm driving and my children are driving? And she said, nobody ever told me not to do that. So for everybody who's listening, you cannot take narcotics, I don't care who you are or what the circumstances are, and then get behind the wheel and drive. And with the availability of Uber and Lyft and taxis and everything, and neighbors, especially here in the suburbs, you really have no excuse to get behind the wheel impaired. But being sleep deprived is another form of impairment, especially for people who are taking drugs like Tylenol PM and don't realize that it has Benadryl, especially now in the spring when people are taking drugs like Tylenol PM in addition to their allergy medications, and they can be really hungover. So I'm really motivated to see what we can do to kind of change your routine, but I'm not getting, and especially because, this is in the spirit of MorphMom,
Right.
we help each other.
Right.
But I'm not 100% convinced that this is something you really want to change. Are you willing to try to change? Is it,
I'm
or do you
scared.
just, okay.
Like,
What are you afraid of?
I hate that feeling in the middle of the night when I'm so anxious. So if I wake up and I have the TV on, people call my house the blue lighthouse, by the way, because the TV is always on. And I feel, so when it's on, it's almost like a comfort to me. I'm not under, I know this sounds crazy. Probably everyone out there's like, what is your problem? But I'm so anxious about falling back asleep that I work myself up so much about it. So if I
Now, where's your husband in all this? What happens when he comes home? So when he comes home late and you're asleep, he turns the TV off. And is it that wakes you up, or the fact that he is now putzing around the house and getting ready for bed and
it
getting?
sort of depends what time he comes in. So if I've had my break, that 12 to whatever, I'm okay.
And then do you have a conversation? Are you having sex? Are you
in that time
engaging in his day? Are you making him dinner? Like, what's going on?
No, because it's late. It's usually after I've now fallen back asleep again. And then it's okay. Then I'm okay. But it's like that first wave when you turn the TV. In that first wave is when I get really anxious, like that 12 to 3, when I'm so worried that I will not fall back asleep for the rest of the night. So if like I can't explain. So if the TV's not on, now I'm thinking, oh my God, how am I going to fall asleep? How is this going to happen? I've tried to turn the lights out and lie there, but now I keep telling myself, how am I going to function tomorrow? And with MorphMom, I have so much to do every day.
I can't believe how many components there are to MorphMom. But have you talked to a therapist about the anxiety?
No, I've never, other than
that might be a next step, because one of the things that might be very helpful in your case is a very short term, and by short term, I mean like 3 nights of, if you have that, taking half of a Xanax. And obviously we're not in a doctor-patient relationship, and I'm not making a prescription. I am making a suggestion. And as my attorney, I know you would advise me to say this.
I'm the attorney.
But that might be, what I'm advising is that would be something good to talk to a therapist about. Because if the problem, and what we always try to do with sleep disorders is identify what is the one thing that's keeping you from sleeping. And in your case, I think we've identified 3 things. And when we're talking about hurdles to sleep, we're talking about internal problems as well as external problems. So the classic external problem for moms is your baby's crying and that wakes you up. In your case, it's your husband's coming home and turning off the TV and that wakes you up. And once you're awake, that's, your whole sleep cycle is shut. So that's your external thing. But your internal problem, you have 2 internal problems. One is that your biological time clock is totally offset. It's totally messed up. So what we need to do, very similarly to what we would advise with a baby, we need to reset the time clock. And you don't get a baby back to going to sleep at a normal bedtime by saying, okay, your bedtime is 8 o'clock and that's what it is. You change it by 10 minutes every time, a little bit every night. And so that's what you need to do. And one of the things that can be very helpful with that is melatonin. Now, one of the things I learned from the sleep doctor, which I did not know, even though I thought I had once been a spokesperson for the National Sleep Foundation. I thought I was really up on all this sleep stuff. But what I didn't know is that with melatonin, according to him, you needed to take it an hour and a half before you want to go to sleep. I always thought it was 20 to 30 minutes. It's a pill.
Over the counter, right? It's
over the counter. You don't need a prescription. The better absorbed pills are sublingual. You put them under your tongue and they dissolve. So they work relatively quickly. But he said you need an hour and a half before bedtime. But the other thing he said most people who are doing wrong who take melatonin is we're taking too high a dose. And it's very hard to find a 1 milligram dose, which is what he recommends, or even a half a milligram. Most people are taking 3 or 5 milligrams. So if you can't find the 1 milligram, get the 3 milligram and get one of those pill cutters and cut it in half. So I would recommend trying that, but I would also really, really, really recommend not watching TV when you're awake and instead read a book, a really boring book. And in fact, the book I used to read, which worked every time when I was in college and I started having sleep problems, was my organic chemistry textbook. 2 seconds and I was out, or 2 minutes, really, 2 minutes, I was out. Maybe law journals.
Right. That's right. That.
Or, maybe a book about, the tax code, right? Or a really interesting book and a really engaging book where you say, okay, I'm going to read one chapter.
Right.
And the reason that works is it takes your mind off whatever else you're worried about and stressed out about it. Now, the other thing that a lot of therapists recommend, which I have tried and really is a great idea, I haven't done it so much since I require reading glasses, but that's just keeping a journal next to the bed. And when you wake up and there's all this stuff going on in your mind and you're thinking about the next day and all your anxieties, write them down, close the book. And then it's sort of like you've just spit it out. You got it out, you wrote it down. And if you read for if you write for half an hour, or make lists, because one of the things a lot of women get very anxious about is, oh, I forgot to do this thing and I have to call this person and I have to make these arrangements.
Yeah.
Write it down and then it's out of your brain and you don't have to worry about it because it's right there on paper when you need it the next morning.
Funny what you're saying. The list actually struck me the most with what you've just said. Because like I said, with MorphMom, and we do these conferences and I've got classes and conferences and the radio show and who's going to be on. There's so many things that I'm thinking about, and I'm trying not to think about listening to the TV, but actually writing the list, it seems very interesting to me. Because I don't
have to write it with a pen, not on your phone.
Right.
Because the phone has this, blue light that triggers the pineal gland in our brain, and it says it's wake up time.
Right.
But if you just use a pen, and you can get a book light just a regular little teeny tiny itty bitty book light that hooks onto the journal, so you can just see that way. Write down whatever it is, and then you can just kind of rest peacefully, knowing that you've written it down, and it will, get done eventually, or not.
Right.
A lot of the things we worry about doing, the punchline is they don't really need to be done. Right. Or, with respect to something like all the MorphMom activities, you have a huge organization. You have meeting planners and helpers and other people you can delegate, a lot of this stuff to.
Yeah.
But now, how did perimenopause factor into your sleep disturbances?
Well, I think it's that, for me at least, and we talked about this actually at our conference, when you were speaking, we quickly actually started to talk about this. I've had this sweating at night. And that also is another thing. I'll wake up. I'm waking up because of other things, but I'm drenched every night.
Okay, so that's a whole nother internal problem. Have you actually gone through menopause yet, or are you still in perimenopause?
Still peri.
Okay. So what most women don't realize, and we talked about this at the conference, is that you can have all of the menopausal symptoms in perimenopause, which can be up to 10 years before you actually go into menopause. And then the only reason you're not yet in menopause is that you're still having periods. So what you're having is called night sweats. And this is kind of the nighttime version of hot flashes. And what many women say is night sweats is not, oh, honey, it's hot in here. I'm waking up and I am drenched.
And almost so drenched that you're cold. Like you've sweat so much that you're like, how is this possible? Yes.
So then do you have to get up and change the sheets or change your bed clothes?
I might change my pajamas. Like sometimes I might do that, or I might just I sleep now with a fan on right next to me. Every night I've got to have a fan on. And this is with air conditioning. I still have a fan on. I just get so hot.
Okay, so what's interesting about the fan is, does the fan provide that kind of white noise that you need?
Probably to a certain extent. Yes, and it's on all the time. So yes, I think that is a constant too that I have. That's true. I actually can't sleep without it. The combination is so hot, and I feel like as long as I have that on, it's okay.
Does it matter if you make it really cold from the air conditioning, or you have to have the fan and the air conditioning?
preferably air conditioning, the open window, and I need as much air as I can.
Yeah, I think this is why your husband's not coming home till 2 in the morning. I don't think it has anything to do with work. I think he's using it as an excuse. How does he sleep?
To come in. He's pretty kind about it. I'm like, I'm so hot. I need this on. But the heat is like intensive heat. I don't know if
that's hot sweat, night sweats. That's very, very typical. So have you talked to your gynecologist about doing something to treat that?
No, I have. The fan has been my self-treatment.
Okay. So basically, you clearly had the sleep problems before perimenopause, but perimenopause is not helping you, and the night sweats are not helping you. Are you having any other symptoms of perimenopause?
No, I think
mood swings, irritability, vaginal dryness, palpitations, headaches.
Pretty much no. It's just the nights, and I don't get it during the day.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
that's why they're called night sweats.
Got it. So no, so far, it's just the night sweats, but it's basically 6 out of 7 nights.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
so that is something that I'm not going to make a treatment recommendation, other than that's something you should see your gynecologist about and have a very candid conversation, because there are a number of medications that she could offer you that could help with that problem. And if that problem went away, do you think the sleep problem would at least be better or less? Or would you still be stuck watching 3 hours of TV?
I think I don't know. Now they're sort of so intertwined. Mm-hmm. I just sort of assume it's both. Like I'm hot and I can't sleep. I don't know. Maybe it would help a little bit.
I think it would, and it certainly doesn't hurt to try.
Yeah.
And these medications are as easy to stop as they are to start. I think one of the things a lot of patients worry about, regardless of what the problem is, if medication is involved, they start thinking, oh, is this something I'm going to have to take for the rest of my life?
Right.
Many times it's just a short-term fix. It's just a short-term solution that can get you through. And there's so many options here for how to treat this.
Right.
In some women, one of the options is a very, very, very low dose birth control pill, whether or not they need contraception. In some women, because it just makes your hormones much more even keel. In some women, it's a half a Xanax. In some women, it's a medication called Belergal, which is a very, very old medication. And then there are some heart medications and even some antidepressants that can help with this. And I want to address that point, because I want to address all of the women who are furious with their doctors, who they tell them about these symptoms and they get prescribed an antidepressant. And then they get all angry and they say, oh, she thinks it's just because I'm, a middle-aged woman, I'm depressed. No, it's because those medications also happen to treat these problems. So it has nothing to do with depression. It has to do with that medicine, which we just happen to call an antidepressant because it works for depression, also works for this and many other conditions.
Can all of these different varieties of medication to treat this also be taken with melatonin?
Yes.
That would not affect it at all.
Yes. So although I can tell you, there are not large clinical studies that are done with melatonin and these other medications. I would try the melatonin first because it's over the counter, and because in your case, you have this particular sleep scheduling issue and this sleep cycling issue. So I would try that. Definitely listen to Dr. Bruce's podcast interview, because he's a much more effective advocate of this and how to do it than I think I might have just been.
I think you're amazing.
Another reason I love you. But I would, urge you to do that. And he has a great book also that I would highly recommend that you read, because that could also put you to sleep. How about that? How about that commitment? While you're awake, read a book about sleep habits and healthy sleep habits. But his book is very, very interesting. But I would just commit to a chapter a night.
Right.
Just don't read something that you're going to be like, can't wait to get to the next chapter. So in my life, one of the worst sleep problems I ever had was every time a new Harry Potter book came out, because I would read it aloud to the kids and then I'd put them to bed and then I would go to bed and read ahead until I couldn't read anymore. And it would often be, till 3 a.m. because I just had to know, what was going to happen next. So that's probably not the best book if you're having a sleep problem, but a book about sleep might be a really good option. And then as far as, the melatonin, just really structure this. And you have to do it again. The best thing I keep coming back to is the same way you do it with a child. You need a bedtime. That means you need to figure out what time you're going to bed. Then you need to figure out how much time does it take you to unwind and get ready for bed. Whether that's an hour or whether that's an hour and a half. And it would begin with an hour and a half before bedtime, taking that melatonin. Now, one of the things he said that I was so disappointed about, and I guess intellectually I knew this, but I didn't really want to admit it, is that one of the most important things for a healthy sleep schedule is having a consistent wake-up time. And I am definitely one of those people where on the weekends, I want to sleep in. And that means do not call me before 9:30 in the morning on the weekends.
See, that's so, I wish I'm up, regardless of what I've slept, I'm up by 6 every single morning.
Wow.
No way could I sleep past 6.
And do you linger in bed, or at 6 you're up and out?
I linger, but I'm out by 7 usually. I mean, I also drive, with kids driving to school, but even on a weekend, I'm out by 7.
Wow. And where are you going at 7 in the morning on a weekend?
Well, I don't know, maybe just to watch TV or go out and get coffee or just to do something, because then I get too antsy. But I'm up. There's no way.
Now, do you work out? Do you exercise? Because aerobic exercise also is very good for helping you sleep. But that also, it's very important to do it at a certain time of the day. So if you work out in the morning, that's the best. But definitely you want to be finished before 7 p.m. So are you a morning workout person or an afternoon workout person?
Definitely morning. Yeah.
Right. So
I am guilty though. I do drink a lot of, and I know this is bad, I do drink a lot of fountain Coke to get myself through the day. And I know it's not the healthiest way to get through, but when I was saying before 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock, I'm shot. I'm pretty much always have a Coke in my hand at that time.
So you're talking to a reformed Diet Coke addict. I'm pretty newly reformed. I only gave it up less than a year ago. I'm extremely proud of myself, and it was extremely hard. And I always had a Diet Coke in my hand. Now, in my defense, I don't drink coffee, so it was my only source of caffeine, but it's just so bad for you for so many reasons. And what made me finally able to go cold turkey was I had a problem where the battery on my car had died, and I called AAA, the battery service. They're wonderful. Shout out to them. And the guy replaced the battery, but some acid had, dripped out from the old battery and had sort of caused that corrosiveness on the connectors. So he said, would you like me to clean these for you? I said, okay, great. Is that a trick question? And he said, no problem, ma'am. Do you have a Diet Coke? And I thought he was thirsty. So of course. And I went and got it for him. And he takes the Diet Coke and he pours it on the battery acid. And it ate right through all of the corrosive area on the battery. And he took a rag and he just cleaned it up, and it looked good as new. And I stopped drinking Diet Coke immediately after that. But the other reason it's bad, and Dr. Bruce talked about this, and this was a suggestion that I have now adopted now that it's finally spring and generally sunny, but not today, is he said at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when you're crashing and you sort of need that caffeine and sugar break, he said, instead of caffeine and sugar, go outside and get a sun break, whether it's sitting out on the back deck for 10 minutes in the sun or just walking a lap around the block. But he said just being out in the sun for 10 minutes will really help, energize you for the rest of the afternoon. And I thought that was genius. Now, so I started doing that on our nice days. Now my problem is once I'm out on the back deck lying in the sun for 10 minutes at 3 o'clock, how do I get back in? So people will know that I'm starting to take my phone calls outside on the back deck at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That's always a good time to reach me. And that's Eastern time. So anything else before we wrap up?
No, I loved.
Have we covered it?
We have, and I loved sharing it and talking about it because I'm sure I hope they're not, but I would think there are others out there who go through this like I do.
Well, there are 17 million Americans on estimate who suffer from chronic insomnia. Chronic insomnia means not being able to either fall asleep or stay asleep for more than 30 consecutive days. And as you know, that's extremely disruptive to your life. And it's not only disruptive to your mood and your energy and your productivity, but also your relationships, your hormones.
Yeah.
So all of those things. So you are certainly not alone. And that's just 17 million people we know about who were in that particular study. Anyway, before I let you go, I have a couple of questions I need to ask you that are very specific.
Sure.
The first one is, we ask everybody this question: what is the most unusual, memorable, interesting, or just crazy experience you ever had in a public ladies' room, aside from obviously this interview?
Oh boy. That's a tough one. Memorable. I'm sure there have been many, many, many. That's why
Many, and most women, it's interesting that you're stumped on this because most people immediately know what it was. Interestingly, just yesterday, I was talking to Dr. Jennifer Berman, who's a urologist and sex expert, and she brought up a great topic. She said this wasn't really one experience, but just many over the years that just really irritated her. Was when her son was younger, when he was little, the experience of having to bring him into the ladies' room with her when he was like 4, 5, 6, especially like at an airport where you would never leave a 6-year-old unattended. So you have to bring them in with you. And she said, just the judgment, the judginess of other women, when she would bring this boy into the ladies' room. And this is one of my pet peeves. And I've been talking about this a lot, whether it's bringing your male children into the ladies' room, or whether it's transgender people, using the ladies' room, or whatever the problem that people have with it. We have stalls. I even started a hashtag on Twitter. We have stalls. So I have never seen the genitalia of another human in a ladies' room, except in one circumstance. And that was when I was changing their diaper. But aside from that, never, ever, ever. I don't see what the problem is if you bring your 4, 5, or 6-year-old, son into the lady, or really, quite honestly, if you bring anyone into the ladies' room, because they're not going to see anything other than you washing your hands, hopefully, because as it turns out, fewer than 50% of people actually wash their hands after using a public restroom. Let's talk about that topic. Or putting on your lipstick.
I have a question. So it's not my specific incident, like anything that happened to me in the ladies' room, but somebody told me recently that the hand dryer has filled with bacteria. So when you put your hands under the hand dryer, and I'm a huge hand dryer fan. Is that true that you?
I don't think they mean under the hand dryer, but it's the ones that have the touch where you have to touch. The hand dryers that are the best are the ones that are just activated by you without touching them.
Okay.
Or that without putting your hands in them. Ironically, you know what the germiest thing is in the ladies' room? Your cell phone.
Really?
Yes, because how many of us ever are really cleaning our cell phones and we're putting it up to our mouths and our hands? So, and we're using ourselves, like most of us will wash our hands before we prepare food or before we do other things, but we're never washing our hands before we use our cell phones. And very few of us are cleaning our cell phones at all, let alone properly. The other thing that many of us do, and years ago, I did a segment on Good Morning America where that was based on a survey, the grimiest places in your home. And it talked about a lot of grimy bathroom stuff. But one of the grimiest, germiest things that we do in a public restroom is we put our pocketbooks on the floor if there's no hook.
All right, that gets me when other people, I can't.
So, but sometimes you have no alternative.
I put it around my neck.
I never thought of that. There have been times where if the floor looked like it was unclean, there have been times when I put it on my lap, but that's a little awkward. So, that's one of the, that's a real restroom issue. The other germiest place in a public restroom is the handle on the door.
Yeah.
Because, many people, all those people who are not washing their hands are using the handle on the door.
Oh.
And then in the restrooms where you have to flush,
yeah,
the actual plunger of the flusher. So I actually always use my foot to do that. But these are all things that we kind of have to think about, and not to worry about, but to think about workaround solutions.
Right.
Yeah. And that's what I'm all about, is how do you get around that? And so one of the things you see a lot of people who are really concerned about germs, especially people who are taking chemotherapy or people who are immunocompromised for any reason, they'll wash their own hands and then use a towel, one of those paper towels, to open the door.
I'm guilty.
What I do is I cock my hip and I kind of push it, which I learned as a mom with a double stroller in the old days.
I'm guilty of not touching any handles. So I taught my kids that. Well, I don't know if they do it. I just kept telling them don't touch the handles. But I always have the paper towel.
Or you could do that, or you carry the Purell in your hands, or you just say, I'm just not going to worry about it, and I'm going to wash my hands frequently, which prevents all kinds of contagion and all kinds of issues. I mean, we can't let ourselves get too anxious about germs. We live in a world with germs. One of the germiest places on our body is our own mouths. So, and of course on this show, we're always talking about the vagina, and the vagina has tons of natural bacteria and viruses and yeast that live there. Just yesterday we were talking about designer vaginas, where women are having cosmetic surgery because they want it to look better. But of course, women are always obsessed with cleansers and personal hygiene sprays and douches because they want to smell like, I don't know why women want to smell like a garden. But this is a public service announcement. No douching under any circumstances unless your doctor has specifically told you need a medicated douche. So I bet you didn't think we were going to go from MorphMom to sleep to douching in the same segment. But my final question for you is, where can people find you, and where can people find MorphMom in the Twitterverse and the universe and cyberspace?
So if you go to morphmom.com is the main website. And on that website, you'll have all the information about when our next conferences are, how to sign up for our classes. Our classes we have bigger classes where you kind of rediscover yourself. And now we have specific classes called Learning Lunches, where we discuss just social media or finances.
I want to go to that.
Isn't that fun? And I think we should maybe we'll have one about the ladies' room. We'll have a learning lunch. But it's really, again, connecting. So if you go to morphmom.com, you'll know the dates of the conferences, the dates of the classes. We have a new exciting thing coming up on our website where it's going to be a membership portion called the club. Okay. And you'll be able to join for a very low fee, but there'll be added webinars and podcasts and fun things. But even if not, there's still tons available. You can go to MorphMom Moments if you want to hear the radio shows, or if you want to hear our podcast. We have an iTunes podcast called MorphMom Moments. And also, as far as Instagram is MorphMom, Facebook, there's a MorphMom page, and Twitter, a MorphMom too as well.
Great. So we can find you everywhere. But the last thing you didn't mention that I wanted to actually know about, I even wrote myself a note, was I was on your MorphMom page and I saw this thing called Move for Minds that you're doing for Alzheimer's. Really so I really want to hear about that. We just had a guest, Carleen Kelly, a few weeks ago, talking about Alzheimer's and caring for her mother who has Alzheimer's. But I want to hear about that. And what is this?
So what we started with, again, MorphMom, the whole thing about connecting, right? So a lot of times we're asking people to come to us, but many times women want to go to something and have nobody to go with. So we started a thing called MorphMom Goes To. So we will go support a woman's event, a MorphMom's event. If someone wants to go to something, we will rally and support that cause. So one of the causes we became involved with is Move for Minds. And Maria Shriver started this. And there's an overall, she's involved with women's Alzheimer's movement in general, but she started a fundraiser called Move for Minds. And what they do is she joined with Equinox, and I think it's 10 cities around the country host an event which goes 9:30 to 12, where they'll give a couple exercise classes. They have people come in who speak, authors, those with Alzheimer's. And this year, Maria Shriver is going to be coming to every city to meet with people as well.
Wow.
So we have started a move. Morph Mom goes to team. There's a Morph Mom team in New York City on June 2nd, and we have a Morph Mom team in Boston on June 3rd. So I'm going to be in New York on the 2nd and Boston on the 3rd, and Maria Shriver will be at both. She's definitely coming to the 2nd and 3rd in New York and Boston. Go on to Morph Mom and you'll see the links for either one and just join our team. And first of all, it's a great way to connect with others. And it's an instant group of people you'll be involved with when you come. And it's an amazing event. Wait till you hear these speakers. You learn so much and you appreciate so much at the same time. And it's a great combination. Bringing Morph Mom to this has been one of the most exciting things we do. So I encourage all of you guys, again, go to morphmom.com and sign up for the Move for Minds links.
Okay, I'm going to see if I can go to that on June 2nd.
Great. Yeah.
We'll see. Anyway, thank you so much. I want you to call me in a week and report back on the changes that you've made and write them down and give yourself credit for all the little improvements that you can do. Because of course, it's small steps that, can really help move mountains. And you've certainly seen this with Morph Mom, and hopefully we can get you to see this with respect to changing your sleep habits. So you can be more well-rested, and then you can accomplish many more things with Morph Mom and in all of the other adventures and exciting things that you're doing. So Kathleen, thank you so much. This has been wonderful, and I hope I see you soon.
I hope so too, and thank you so much. And watch for our conferences, by the way, when we get Donica back on. I will see you soon. Thank you so much.
All right, take care. Bye-bye. That's all we have time for today. But let's keep the conversation going on Twitter or Facebook at Dr. Donica. And please join us next week for another episode of In the Ladies' Room with Dr. Donica. Real conversations with real women about really intimate topics.